Welcome back to another episode of the Block Runner Podcast. I'm your host, William, always here with your co-host, Iman.
What's going on, dude?
On the sticks, we got TJ.
Hello.
All right, Iman, you missed another Twitter space, by the way, on Tuesday.
Again, this is during my bathtub time, dude. Where
Wow.
This is
You have the whole rubber duckies and everything?
something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, I gotta have some self-love, dude.
Wow.
You know, just like a little bit, where I get to,
Huh. You know what
enjoy
my self-love
existence
is? You want to guess?
in life. It's gonna be something very unrelatable. I'm already. I don't know, dude. Like when you wake up in the morning, you're like looking in the mirror, and you're just like doing this and stuff. Is that part of it?
No, definitely not.
It's not your self-love routine?
It's like two things, learning and then working out.
Yeah, working out was the obvious one.
Yeah.
But I was hoping you'd bring in something
new.
something something original.
Like check the NAT price. It's like, ooh.
Yeah. Or is this anything, right?
Yeah.
It's like, your morning ritual when you're, scalping your own dome.
Yeah.
Something like that. It's like every stroke is like
It's like the greatest.
it's like an energy source, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of energy source, Bitcoin is at a new price of 86,000 or something.
Well, what was spoken on the Twitter space?
Oh, well, I think we were just recounting what happened in 2025 with the NAT token specifically.
That's powerful, thing to do. I think there's a lot to look back on for sure.
Yeah. So on February, we did the Bitcoin miner redirect. And then in 10 months, we had 60% hash power, which was shocking.
Yeah.
And
then we achieved, I think, a new all-time high, right? Also,
kind of
just about,
yeah, 50, 60
Still,
million.
In these market conditions, it's pretty good.
Yes. Yeah. And by the way, in 2025, for an entire year, we've been in the bear market. So
It's like consensus now. Everybody
Well,
agrees.
that's what people are saying.
Yeah.
Right?
So then
It must be true.
people are coming to reality. If it collectively we're all like, okay, yeah, 2025 was the start of the bear.
Yeah, but you know that's interesting that you can only know that this was a bear looking in the past. You cannot know that we're in the bear in real time.
No, it's you can. There's signs, but you have to like make very big assumptions, I guess. And
Yeah, there were signs. I mean, a Trump token.
Yeah, that was
in
the first
January 2025.
yes, the fact that DATs and other treasury companies were just manifesting billions of dollars out of thin air, like on a weekly basis.
Yeah, but still, even with all this stuff, it was like supposed to be happening. It's like this is what you would expect when TradFi adopts crypto.
Yeah, I think there's some good things happened this cycle. It wasn't like a total wash, the way people kind of like to paint it. It was like an absolute
I don't
travesty.
know, dude. How is this not a travesty, dude? Let's go back to when we started the podcast, right? In that dip, and let's go a little bit into the future. So we started the podcast here. How is this not disappointing, dude? How is this like an acceptable bull market, as they call it?
Well, maybe we just have to redefine our expectations when it comes to bullish and bearish markets, right?
No, that's unacceptable, dude.
I don't know. It's like the previous bulls were like purely hype derived. Maybe this is evidences of us entering into a maturity phase,
Well, then that would mean that we're not going lower than this, right? If this is really a mature asset now,
maybe it's unrealistic. If it's unrealistic for Bitcoin to like achieve, banana zone performance on the upside, then it's unrealistic to expect it to like.
Okay, now we're talking, dude.
Peak much worse, or as aggressively, I guess. Yeah, so it's it's achieved stability. Isn't this what we always wanted?
Yes. Right. If Bitcoin,
but it comes with a consequence, right?
Yeah. If Bitcoin maintains blue, it's still extremely bullish. Way better than S&P 500.
Yeah.
Way better than like most assets out there.
Yeah, blue and green. Why not?
Yeah, forever.
Yeah.
I'm down with that.
That is a great asset to have in your
100%.
Wealth chest.
Yes.
And that's it. That means Bitcoin won. It achieved
100%.
true financial, like, status.
Yes, I totally agree.
Yeah. So what's the big deal, guys? Why is everyone so upset?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I could tell you one party of people who should be upset. It's the miners, right?
Oh, yes, which we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah.
I think there's one more thing, something about, okay. So if we're going to be making predictions, if it maintains in the blue, it's still, bullish long term. But if that is true, then we're at all-time lows for the next coming cycle, right? This is when you're supposed to be buying Bitcoin so that by the time it goes up in the bull range, you're properly positioned.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just if Bitcoin's in like a new stable state, then just forget about where it is price wise. Just always be buying Bitcoin. It's really that simple.
Yeah.
Like quit trying to time exits and entries. It's not that kind of asset anymore. It's literally just like, it's like having a retirement account,
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, it's kind of snoozer. You don't want to like, kind of like build an identity framework of yourself around this thing.
Yeah.
It's just not very interesting anymore.
Yeah, agreed.
But still, there's many other things to be interested in, NAT and DMT included.
Yes.
So yeah, it's like now at the end of the year, if you guys have been watching or paying attention, you pretty much know everything that happened this year. It's been a pretty interesting one. It all started off with, kind of like the top of meme coinery and
It did.
With Trumpcoin, it definitely took all the air out of the AI meta.
Definitely did.
Crypto AI, not trad AI.
Yeah, crypto AI lasted about 6 weeks.
Six, yeah, like the very euphoric, bubbly, topish parts where, like in the moment we were seeing like AI robotics projects starting to come out. And we're like questioning, like in normal conditions, I would say this is like top activity.
Yeah, they were pre-orders for robots.
Yeah, it was getting a little frothy, but we're like, you know what, AI is such a big deal. It's like maybe this is normal.
Yeah,
but no, it was absolutely a top indicator. Crypto got a little carried away with their AI assumptions. Like I remember at this point in time, we were supposed to have AGI. That was like one of the big selling points to investing in crypto AI agents, because by this time they will be autonomously building their own like native digital economies.
That's right.
Everywhere, the metaverse included.
Yeah, I mean, exponential growth is fast. I don't know if it's really that fast.
Yeah. So we got a little carried away, right, with our expectations. So therefore, prices resettled back to reality. So
yeah,
maybe a similar case scenario here for Bitcoin. It's like, because regulation is amok. It's like you would expect prices to kind of explode, but maybe it's a slower, more gradual process than what we originally anticipated, right?
Yeah. I find that kind of surprising, but it does seem reasonable. So what we're going to talk about today is some predictions, but you've generated a few slides for us.
Why not? Right? The tools are there.
Yeah.
We could have either just bullet pointed this out, which I did.
Yeah.
But that's not as interesting of like a visual like display format, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally I only have to push a button and this stuff gets rendered for you.
Yeah. That's totally fine. As a matter of fact, we were discussing this one video I shared with you guys about this 72-year-old man talking about the mistakes that he's learned over 52 years or something like that.
Right.
And so it was like a 12-minute video, and it was pretty good, but the whole thing was AI generated.
Right.
And it's sort of like, kind of like took the message and down a notch.
Well, see, you had the authentic experience there. We did not, because you kind of primed us.
I did prime you guys
with this like expectation. So I went into it already kind of hating this man. It's like, screw this old timer, dude. I don't need to listen to him. He's not even real. But you went through the whole thing assuming it was real.
Yeah.
Because why not? Why would anybody harm me like this on the internet, right? So what was your genuine reaction like before you found out that it was all fake?
Well, as I was watching the video, the message is good, right? It's basically, focus on family, touch grass, things like that. It's stuff that you would expect.
Yeah.
But what got me to click the video was that a few days ago, it had 150,000 views, and then a few days later, it had 2 million views. I was like, okay, I guess I'll watch it because people seem to like it.
Yeah.
And so I watched it and I was like, okay, this is like a good message, but there's nothing really new here.
Right.
Until the very end where this old man is speaking to you in the camera and he's saying, please like and subscribe and watch my other content. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, there's no way this genuine sort of like message is going to be kind of like soiled by such a like a eloquent pitch to subscribe and like and all that stuff.
I see. So then how did you immediately feel after that? Did you feel violated? Did I feel intellectually like dishonored.
Well, my spidey senses went off, right? Yeah. Immediately at that moment. Like the other stuff, the B-roll, yeah, it was all AI generated, which to me, in my opinion, that was fine because that was just an editor just using B-roll to make the story better. Mm-hmm. So I was fine with that stuff. The voice was even pretty good too. But then I looked at the comments and everybody was commenting as if this was like a real message from an old man.
Right.
And I was shocked. And then of course it was all AI generated. And then I read the disclaimers like this is all a fake story.
Yeah.
It's just to make you feel good.
So still, are you angry or not?
I'm disappointed.
Really?
I'm disappointed because
wow.
Because like you said, it's like, but you like watching movies, you know they're fake, but you're still entertained, right?
Yeah.
I was like, well, this guy is giving me life advice of what's supposed to be a history of 72 years, and he's compiling all that information and distilling some message to take away. Mm-hmm. And I thought this would be useful, right? This is pretty good, interesting information. But then it came from an AI, and therefore, like, it doesn't have any weight.
Yeah, it lost all of its...
Despite the message being good.
Interesting. Damn, you're literally... So we talked about this last week, right? I think right now you're shocked and appalled, but like eventually you're gonna get over it. You know, you're not gonna care at some point, right? Because now, yeah, it's unnatural, right? It doesn't feel right. It feels, yeah, there's something. It feels a little bit like manipulative in a sense. Like it's like the people who are producing this content, they understand like human beings have heartstrings and struggles and you know, mental issues. Is like, let's produce content that like really directly taps into that and like, you know, convert them into the bare minimums of basically viewers.
Sure.
Right. Because let's make an ROI out of that. But, you know, they already do this.
Yeah. It's just
the organic sense.
It's just part of the package was that it needed to be genuine. Like that was part of like the value of the message.
Think so?
It had to be genuine. It couldn't be just like a good story, good message.
Yeah, because the way he framed it, he was like drawing on his life experiences.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like actually like valid.
Yeah.
Because it's like an actual like experience being recalled.
Yeah.
Not like simulated. But it's super. Yeah. I get it. And yeah.
Let me pull it up and find it.
Okay. That way
people can. Yeah.
It's like, what's wrong with you guys?
I'm 73 years old.
Oh, there's music there. Is it okay?
I don't know. It could be AI generated music, so it should be fine.
I'm 73 years old, and I'm about to tell you something that might upset you. Everything you think you know about getting older is completely wrong. And the worst part, the people who should be telling you this, your parents, your teachers, society, they're either lying to you or they don't know themselves. You see, I spent the first 50 years of my life.
So then this is, everything is AI generated, including the guy. But like I was fine with this. I was like, okay, there's an old man talking to the camera. That's sort of unusual, but I'll let it go because maybe this guy has a message.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he's clearly has lived some life, right? So he may have some wisdom.
That's the picture.
Wisdom to share.
Like who frames that picture right there?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Nice wooden frame. It's like, man, I really had to capture that angst.
Yeah.
And like relive it every day.
So again, to me, this was like the editor is like, okay, let's generate some of these images to kind of paint the picture of what he's saying.
Right.
But yeah, like obviously it's not happening in reality, right? So anyway, it's 12 minutes and he has a good message. All this B-roll I was like okay with. And then at the very end, let me play the end here.
Live intentionally. Prioritize what matters. Stop waiting for someday. Someday is today. It always has been. If this resonates, share this video, leave a comment, tell me what you're going to do differently. Subscribe, because I have more truths to share and not much time left. The clock is ticking. What are you going to do with your time?
Yeah, I was like,
dude.
wait a minute. Wait a minute.
I don't think you like that he challenged you there. It's
Yeah.
like, how dare you, old man?
Here I am actually sharing the video.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. It's fucking working like a charm.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah, and so is everyone else. This has 2.4 million views 11 days ago. But again, read the comments. It says, I'm 15 and I understand this. I think I'm lucky to hear this so early. And then there's other people saying, I'm 17. And, you know, they're actually taking the message away and like thinking that this is real.
yeah,
There's tons of these.
They're all going to drop out of university ASAP,
Yeah.
abandon their academic curriculum.
Yeah, because some old man was like, you're wasting your time.
Yeah. Fuck all your ambitions and dreams. What you should be doing is, touching grass a little harder.
Yeah.
You know, getting more of these like doom shots with your Polaroid camera.
Yeah.
So you could frame them and put them all over your desk. You know, that's what you should be doing.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's whatever, dude. But
So this is a case of AI fooling people.
we're just AI entering into the consumer space. Like, what did we expect to happen, right? With these tools of like frictionless. Like, literally, I pushed a button. Like I generated the bones of what we're about to talk about here, right?
Yeah.
In like a bullet point format. It's like, all right, everybody's out there creating crypto predictions at the end of the year is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
That way, you know, test your actual wisdom. By this time next year, we can look back. It's like, was I right or totally off the mark, right? It's a nice little exercise. So do that and then run it through the Notebook LM machine.
Yep.
And then it poops out like a, you know, a very well, you know, put together presentation, right?
Yeah.
It used to take a lot of time and effort to do.
Yeah, 100%.
Literally just a button, dude.
Yeah, and it gave you like a Murad level sort of presentation.
Sorta. It's missing a couple of waifus, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's a style, actually, I could have selected.
Yeah.
As I pushed the button. It's like, make it more anime.
Yeah.
And it would have been very Murad-like.
Yeah.
And that's the point, right? If we have access to these tools, why would we not? Right?
Yeah, I think this is totally fine, right?
Yeah.
But
I
this
guess.
old man telling you how you should live as an AI, that's not fine.
There's going to be a lot more of this, dude. I'm telling you right now. It's going to be like...
And again, 2 million views or 2.4 million views, I think is being shared, not because it's AI generated, but because the message is good.
Yeah, I think people, for sure, like, you know, there's a lot of confusion out there, right? What to do with your life, a lot of fear and panic because of AI uncertainty. So it's like, you know, it's nice to know, you know, this guy, you know, assumingly, if it was a true, genuine experience, like the thing he regretted most was like prioritizing his efforts at like just being a cog in the economic wheel, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and that's what is being removed from our existence, not by choice, but by force because of technology.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like, therefore, we're kind of like forcefully falling in line with these, you know, these old heads warnings. It's like, don't do that, right? It's like, well, luckily we won't have to make that choice at some point.
That's true. That's true.
Right? So that's like, it's hitting.
Yeah.
Why not? You know, we need more stuff like this to like, you know, cheer us up because it's freaking bleak, you know?
Yeah. So let's go deeper into the AI space and look at our 2026 predictions of crypto.
Yeah. Let's start with just like umbrella, what we think crypto will look like a year from now. And then we'll
head into the NAT space.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. So a market forged in winter from contraction to global contention. So in 2026, crypto landscape will be defined by a profound paradox. A prolonged bear market will force a brutal but necessary consolidation of activity and power. From this compressed state, a renaissance of on-chain innovation will emerge, leading to an inevitable convergence with traditional finance, global regulation, and geopolitical power struggles.
Okay, so
power in there twice, by the way.
Geopolitical power struggles. Oof.
Or
big oof, dude.
All right, so we have consolidation, we have on-chain renaissance, and global convergence. So part one, the great consolidation. So we have the 4-year cycle holds. So this is a prediction. The 4-year cycle continues to hold. I don't think it will. Eventually, it's not going to hold, but I think it's not holding now.
Really?
It's already not
so
holding.
You're contending against my prediction here.
Yes, I am.
Dude, well, why didn't you make a PowerPoint slide, dude?
Well,
what makes you so confident and sure,
Well, I showed you already. We're
The
stuck in the
rainbow chart?
blue, dude.
Dude.
What other direction can it possibly go than up?
I mean, a little bit more down and sideways, right?
Well, even if it goes sideways, it's going to go sideways in the blue.
Okay, well, let's hear my side first.
All right, so market prices fall or fail to recover, preserving the traditional 4-year cycle dynamic for the time being. Intense sell pressure from Intense sell pressure from digital asset treasury companies in quarter one, quarter two accelerates fear and panic.
Yeah, so clearly this button isn't perfect, right? Yeah.
Well,
You
I
have
don't
to
think you
include-
gave it enough context.
True, it was my fault.
Yeah.
I assumed it knew everything. Of course not. Right? You
So,
need to give it more context.
It said distributed autonomous trust. I mean, that's even just made up.
Yeah, it's like this sounds appropriate.
Yeah. So this pressure fuels negative market sentiment, pushing out timelines for a potential recovery. Yeah. So basically it's saying 4-year cycle is still in, and since it's still in, 2026 is going to be nothing but down. And therefore digital asset treasury companies are going to struggle, and there's going to be a huge consolidation of those.
Yeah, it's just going to add to the already existing negative sentiment, I guess. Just like whenever digital asset treasury companies were doing well, like, Michael Saylor's MicroStrategy, all Tom Lee and Joe Lubin, these guys just came out of the woodwork and scooping up Ethereum like at unheard proportions.
So I need to comment. You said when they were doing well. Michael Saylor is the only one that did well because he started in 2020.
Well,
right?
These other ones had very short time frames of perceivably doing well. I mean, their MNAVs are above 1.
They were above 1 for maybe like a week or 2.
No, it was a few months.
No way, dude.
Yeah, dude. Come on. Give them some credit. But yeah, they were nowhere as close to, what MicroStrategy achieved this cycle.
Maybe
right?
a month their MNAVs were positive.
Well, regardless, right? But all that added it to the euphoria and to this expectation most people had. It's like, all this added buy pressure, institutions, DATs. It's like, no way Bitcoin and Ethereum, everything's going to skyrocket.
Yeah. We
even have Solana DATs on the way. We're going to get NFT DATs. That means OpenSea is going to come back to life.
Yes.
Yeah.
We knew that was like smoke and mirrors stuff, right?
Yeah, but we didn't know how long it would take for. I actually assumed it would actually play out like more aggressive, more actual to a frothy state. Not necessarily for MicroStrategy. You could argue it's like Michael Saylor erecting new cogs every week to build this transmission.
Sure.
Was like a sign of froth, but maybe not. But I was expecting that to kind of like trickle throughout all the other DATs, but it never happened.
A DAT cannot work unless it's Bitcoin, maybe Ethereum, and then maybe NAT.
Well, for sure Bitcoin, because it has this cyclical rhythmic expectation, which potentially now is broken if this prediction remains true.
Yeah.
Therefore, like all these assumptions around lending for Bitcoin and like building treasury strategies around this, all those models are broken psychologically. Yeah. Because people can no longer assume it's just this like forever growing at a consistent pace thing.
Sure.
So stop building, smoke and mirrors around that assumption. Actually address like the core issues of the thing.
Yeah.
The way NAT is trying to do.
Yes, totally agree. Isn't there a DAT strategy for Story Protocol?
There is, or was. I don't know if it's still around.
Well, is, but not really. You cannot do a DAT strategy with Story Protocol. You can't do it.
Yeah, but the result of it, Story Protocol itself, the IP token, it did well for a point in time because,
it
the
did.
froth in the market.
But that was like in the range of like the 1 month time frame.
Yes, pretty much.
All right, let's continue.
So in other words, on the way up, all these things looked good. On the way down, it's going to make things look really bad. Once like the selling starts to begin, just the perception of it, even though it might not, it's probably like a smart thing from a fiduciary perspective to like sell off your treasury holdings just to keep your, stockholders afloat.
Yeah.
But from a market perception standpoint, it's going to look like
yeah, that's bad news bears.
Sky is falling.
Yeah.
Earth is splitting at the crust, you know?
Yeah, I want to reiterate though is that even though like Story Protocol and some of these like DAT strategies kind of look good, they never actually looked good. Absolutely.
Right.
Right. You can know when things are going to work before they fall apart.
Yes.
That's my point, is that just because you do a DAT strategy for some random token doesn't mean it's just going to work.
Right. But because of the froth and the euphoric sentiment of the time, it's like there's a collective agreement. It's like it's going to work for some amount of time at least.
Sure. Yeah, the music is playing, so you dance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We just didn't know
that
the music would stop this fast.
Yeah.
You know?
All right. Mining squeeze creates unprecedented centralization risk, of course. Unsustainable revenue during the bear market forces Bitcoin mining hash power to consolidate at a record pace. The rapid consolidation raises serious concerns over network security. So this is basically saying if 2026 is a bear year, that means that there's going to be consolidation of Bitcoin miners, which means centralization, which means that Bitcoin has a threat vector accelerating.
Yeah, well, that means those are all a lot of interesting things that NAT kind of foretells, right?
Yeah.
If you truly understand the premise and purpose of NAT's existence and the utility of like what the problem, I guess, it's trying to solve.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these are things that were kind of devised around a time where this assumption of Bitcoin's growth rate was much more sustained, right?
Yeah, because when I remember in 2016 and 2017, looking deeply into Bitcoin, I was like, man, this thing it has to double, right? It's like, that's why people are buying it, because it has to double.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm in, right? And, but that was like when the prices were $1,000, $2,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could double 2,000 to 4,000, 4,000 to 8,000. Like these are okay. Right. Once you get to 100,000, going to 200,000, now we're like, wait a minute, this is not going to work, really? Once it gets to 200, then we're expecting 400. It's like, no, it just doesn't feel right. Right. So continuing on here, speculative volume capitulates, leaving block space a barren frontier. The meme coin market, a primary driver of speculative on-chain volume, capitulates to all-time lows. You could argue that we're already there.
Yeah, it's just a continuation of what we're already feeling, I guess.
Yeah, this collapse in demand for block space further exacerbates unsustainable revenue dynamics for miners.
So that's already happening.
Yeah, several niche attempts to reignite on-chain momentum failed to gain significant traction. So yeah, so just a depiction of, what is that? On-chain.
It's just
speculative volume. Yeah.
Yeah, we've already seen these charts kind of playing out in real time. Solana is like,
there's a
mass exodus compared to where we were a year ago.
Yeah, there was like 6 million users on Solana, and now there's like 600,000 at most.
Yeah, and in the context of Bitcoin and, inscription volume, ordinals activity, all that,
it's basically nothing.
It's been off the charts for about a year. So so that most likely will continue. So what does that mean? It's like in tandem with the I guess value pressure Bitcoin underperforming does to the network of Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
It raises like more obvious concerns of sustainability. Traditional wisdom would imply, okay, we need to jack up fees somehow in order to offset this this dynamic.
Yeah.
So it's like, what does that mean? Oh, we need to start, concocting things to do on chain again.
Yeah.
And some of them, probably most of them, will fail, but maybe something will emerge that like becomes the ordinals of this cycle. The next iteration of something of value coming from Bitcoin.
On-chain activity, So the on-chain renaissance, so how the growth emerges from the crucibles of a bear market. So basically repeating the patterns of ordinals, because ordinals started in the peak of the bear, like starting 2023.
Yeah, pretty much. Late 2022.
Yeah.
Early 2023. This is where despair was at its like peak.
Yeah. So neobanking becomes the new on-ramp, supercharging stablecoin deposits. So if you don't know what neobanks are, definitely watch our previous video. We talked about, or was it?
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think we've ever really
we didn't
gone deep. Yeah, we haven't really been making content over the last month or so. Had we been making content, we'd be talking a lot about this.
Yeah.
Right, because it's becoming like a systemic application, I guess, if you will, as a result of stablecoin legislation and just like, you know, the ubiquitous utility of, I guess, the stablecoins kind of brings to the world. And now it's like shifting the dynamics a bit of like what people expect out of our industry. It's like, yeah, we need more of this because it actually addresses real world problems.
Sure,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so neobanking essentially is leveraging the superpower of the dollar in its digital form.
Yeah, and exporting that
abroad
via apps.
Yeah, via apps. So it's like if you live in some sort of, you know, environment where your native currency is just like totally unreliable.
Yeah.
You've got a new mechanism to like transfer your value.
Yeah. If you
have something more stable.
Yeah, if you have internet access, you have access to a first world country's stablecoin.
Correct. Which is like better, even though the first world country stablecoin is
not that
also teetering. It's not fully swaying like a lot of other ones, right? Like it's still holding pretty firm in the wind.
Yeah.
But there's others that are like imminently about to topple over.
Collapsing,
so
yeah.
If you live there, this is a sexy proposition to you, right?
Yeah. So this is very similar. It kind of reminds me of like understanding when we were kids growing up, we're like the internet's kind of important. And it's like, this is kind of where you need to be, right? And then in this generation is like, crypto is kind of important. This is kind of where you need to be. So like, if you're living in one of these countries, if you're paying attention, this is very important.
Yeah.
Because if you're not doing this, you're getting left behind at a faster pace now.
Correct. Yeah, and the industry is kind of molding itself. There's a lot of VC capital going to these neobank operations. Yeah. We've been seeing it. So expect pretty rapid proliferation next year, right?
Yeah.
And what the consequence of that being a lot of new liquidity essentially entering the market, but through non-traditional means, right? They're not speculating on Bitcoin or Ethereum.
No.
They're simply just trying to, you know,
solve a problem in third world countries.
Yeah. They want a new banking solution, right? So
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So core insight, despite the overreaching bearish conditions, neobanking applications provide a powerful and accessible channel for user onboarding. The mechanism, the primary vector for this new capital inflow is through stablecoin deposits bypassing direct exposure to volatile crypto assets. Yeah, so this is how we get new users, right, in the space. New on-chain capital seeks productive yield, reviving DeFi and real-world assets. So key dynamic, a resurgence of DeFi and real-world assets, experimentation emerges, and the primary motivation is to convert the newly onboarded stablecoin deposits into market-compatible capital growth strategies.
Specifically yield. So I think this is like a natural next step, right? It's like if you onboard people into being like owners of digital currency.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what do I do next with this thing? It's like, oh, I want access to, you know, what
6% yields.
whatever it is you know, developed nationers have been doing your whole lives. You guys have access to like lending.
Sure.
And yeah, like just somehow you guys get richer the longer you live, right? I want access to these types of mechanisms too. It's like, okay, here we are. We're called DeFi.
Yeah.
We're called real world asset tokenization protocols. So now we can grant access to these new users who've never really been able to participate.
Yeah. Seems pretty reasonable.
Seems like a natural extension, right? Now, whether or not it could be like, you know, executed with grace within like a 2026 time frame,
which I think it can. I mean, it's just plugging in DeFi protocols into your app. Means
hopefully it's
an API away.
Yeah, but hopefully like the predatory instincts don't really come out here. It's like, oh look, a bunch of fish with fresh meat.
Yeah, what the risk here is smart contract risk. These like smart contracts get hacked, and all of a sudden, all these like third world participants just get wiped.
Yeah,
it's like welcome to crypto.
God, turns out that sway was like actually better conditions.
It's like a flag. It's like
at least there weren't like sharks swimming around.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Like, but this is kind of like an underlying theme of like I think 2026 is going to be how do we clean up this space and like mature a bit in a sense.
Yeah.
Right. Regulation's like the first step for that, but it's also like cleaning up the perception of crypto quite a bit.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So low block space demand becomes a catalyst for Bitcoin L1 experimentation. So
Yeah, you didn't jive with this, or did you?
Well, let's go through it. So the unsustainable revenue dynamics for miners create an environment of extremely low cost block space. The opportunity is that low demand environment incentivizes a second wave of Bitcoin L1 experimentation as developers can build and test.
I don't know what that is. That's a hallucination.
As developers can build and test new protocols without high transaction fees. So what's happening here is that because people don't know that NAT exists, the only possible solution to this low block space is increasing the fees to generate a fee space for sustainability.
Yeah, assuming price stays stagnant, and therefore it elicits like a more of like a response, an immune response, if you will, from the ecosystem because they're now aware of this big crisis. You know, conventional wisdom per like major actors like Michael Saylor, Brian Armstrong, and pretty much everybody else, they've all said publicly, it's like whenever they're questioned about this issue, their response is always reverting to fees.
Yep.
Fees will solve all these problems. You wait and see.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you would assume, okay, we're all in agreement. There's a problem. We need to work towards it. You know, we need to amplify demand for block space again. So how do you do that?
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen it happen once. We saw the results of ordinals and runes.
Yeah, and the fees were pretty good. It's just they were not sustainable.
Yeah.
And so that's really the underlying issue here is that you would need to sustain this activity in order for it to be used as a security measure.
Yes.
And it's extremely hard to do that with Bitcoin just because it has a max cap of 160 million transactions per year.
Yeah, and just in general, like with doing that in the crypto space, period. Like almost nothing has been like sustainably, I guess, impactfully present throughout the years, other than like, I don't know, centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges. Like, you know, market rails, those things kind of never go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as far as like actual market applications, those things tend to come and go, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so the point here is that because the sharks in this scenario is all the people building on Bitcoin L1, they're going to be like, Bitcoin has a problem, and the only way to solve this problem is to create L1 activity.
Yeah.
And it's like we've created a technology where developers can come and build and create and solve that problem. Yeah. But that is not going to sustain Bitcoin long term, because even if you did that, even if you did receive all that volume and all that activity, the transaction price the fee per transaction on Bitcoin needs to always go up if the network value goes up, because otherwise you can't really sustain a network if there isn't a proportional security component to the actual underlying network value.
100%. This is why, you know, there may be experimentation during this time, but, you know, NAT included is part of this experimentation, but a much more non-conventional way of doing things.
That's right.
Which we think will paint a new generation of conventional wisdom around how do we build application level value from Bitcoin,
yes,
without encumbering the network itself,
yeah,
and still doing exactly what you just said. It's like actually covering the gap disparity.
Yeah. So we're going to go deeper into that here at the end.
Yeah.
And we're going to explain all that. So part 3, the autonomous frontier, paradigm shifting technologies creating novel market structures. AI emphasis shifts from hype to utility as agentic capabilities emerge. So we essentially have AI agents that focus on AI continues to grow on capabilities evolve, agentic capabilities unlock, allowing AI to perform autonomous tasks. The evolution creates the possibility for entirely novel market opportunities to emerge, and then the evolution creates the possibility for entirely novel market opportunities to emerge.
Oh, wow, I repeated it twice, dude.
So just in case you didn't know.
That's the most important crux of it all, right?
Yeah, so AI agents are basically going to do everything.
Yeah, or they're just going to become more like purposed, more useful.
Yeah.
In the context of just the whole world, right? But I mean, just the leap we've taken in a year, just like
it's huge.
Yeah. So another year forward, like assume it's huge again.
Yeah, what would that mean?
I don't know, but
Everybody on the team is coding now?
maybe. Yeah, we got like autonomous projects, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
It's like launch some project with some token, with some AI agent, network, and watch it cook.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, it's producing, old people recounting their fake experiences, and it's generating millions of dollars on YouTube and funneling all that revenue to some DAO. And shit, you're cooking, dude. We're back.
Yeah, it's all on the back of old people.
Yeah, or brain rot, or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
But that's what's cool about it. It's so unpredictable. That's why it's worth paying attention to. Because whatever does emerge from this, it's gonna be shocking,
wild.
Yeah, it's gonna blow our minds. I'm certain of it. I just kind of getting impatient a little bit.
I mean,
bring us the agents, damn it.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that too.
Yeah.
The global convergence is part 4, the inevitable integration with the reaction from world governments and traditional finance. And regulation matures, evolving crypto into structured internet capital markets. Oh, that's cool word there. Core evolution, the regulatory landscape becomes more structured. Key outcomes, this enforces new layers of protection for token holders, granting them further entitlement and ownership rights.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big thing.
And then token issuance platforms gain a larger opportunity to capture and compete for entrepreneurial market share within a clear legal framework.
Yeah, I think this is huge. This is like the next step, right? Step 1 was stablecoin legislation. Now we're kind of waiting for the next iteration of regulatory clarity. I think it's literally called the Clarity Act for that reason. Now we can understand, objectively, how close to securities can we come?
Yeah.
If not all the way. I don't know. But let's see how they outline.
Yeah, I think you can issue securities as long as you're not issuing to what used to be Americans. But now with these new acts, maybe you can issue securities to Americans in a legal
whatever
kind of rail.
Exactly. That's what for sure will come at some point in time next year. And then we're going to see a similar to neobanking response, right? Some new industry fold emerging from that.
Yeah.
And most likely come from the token issuance layer, right? Because, they're literally the facilitators of new digital creation, right? So, you have the biggest implication as far as, how you, build with these rails, these new regulatory rails. So, expect that.
Yeah. Privacy tech proliferation at the stablecoin layer ignites a geopolitical firestorm.
Yeah, this is a little...
Yeah, this is a shot in the dark here. There was a moment in time where privacy coins were the talk of the town, and I see that. I just don't think that that's going to be that big of a deal in the context of everything else.
Why not?
Because we've had privacy tokens. Why is it a big deal now versus in the past?
Well, because those tokens never had any actual usage, right?
Privacy transactions, they've always been useful.
Yeah, but no, usage to the scale of the dollar.
Yeah.
If we're talking about neobanking onboarding potentially millions, if not billions of people.
Yeah, I just don't think those billions. I don't think those billions are I'm onboarding because my transaction is going to be private. I don't think that's why they're onboarding.
No, not initially, but eventually it's capture them first, and then offer them optionality right later.
Yeah,
and then I would like to move money around cross border with nobody knowing that I'm doing that.
I guess. Of course, people would want that. I just don't think that is a high priority item for people.
I don't know, but I know there are certain teams working on this very thing. So it will be part of the option set.
Sure.
Probably at some point. And what I'm predicting is it becoming a big macro concern at some point in time, right? Because what that presents to people is an actual digital cash.
Sure. So in context to real cash, where it's anonymous, I just don't know what the volume of real cash is.
I'm pretty sure it's tremendous, dude.
I seriously doubt it.
Really?
I seriously doubt it. Do any of you carry cash?
No.
No, but we're not the ones that the government's interested in, because we're the honest ones. But there's a whole sector of the economy, the non-abiders.
Yeah, but I think it's still small volumes.
They know better than to, use Venmo for their crimes, Or transparent blockchain rails is like.
Yeah, but they could already use Monero and Zcash right now.
Yeah, I know. But I'm just saying, I think this will trickle into like more hands than previously.
I think more likely is that the conversation around privacy tokens will explode, but the actual usage of it will not.
Yeah, well, nonetheless, it still makes this like much more attractive than native currencies that are swaying in the winds.
Yeah.
So you're going to see like a big capital fleet reaction from a lot of these, other territories. And, these nations are already kind of aligned against the dollar, literally calling themselves BRICS and such.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this adds another layer of like contention. It's like, because the United States has digitized its hegemony of control, it's like our own citizens, like they could just bypass our thoughts and opinions and how do we maintain our own native monetary policies, right? Sure. So like, hell no. This adds another wrinkle of drama and like tension and BRICS versus the United States, and something has to come out of that, like some kind of inflection point. Whether it's maybe it's let's make a revision to the Stablecoin Act. Yeah. And like now only like legitimate bank institutions that go through a million layers of red tape.
Yes.
These are the actual trusted bodies, and no, they will not offer privacy as an option.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I can see that.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. All right. A new era of resilience. So this is the last slide, integrating and contentious. So the crypto market of 2026 is no longer defined by the speculative highs of the past. It is a system forged by the pressures of consolidation, resulting in more resilient and innovative on-chain economy. Its success has forced a global convergence, making it an inseparable part of international finance and geopolitics. The future of crypto is not about escaping the system, but about navigating its place within it.
Very quaint AI.
All right, so
I didn't write any of that.
All right, so now let's focus on NAT. This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
So the 2026 thesis for the emergence of Bitcoin's second valid subsidy.
Yeah.
It's interesting to put valid in there.
Well, yeah, I think valid, I think I might have injected that, where it's like, I think NAT has proven its viability, but now let's try, now we need to prove validity, and that's more of like a value perception thing, right? Because we're not going to solve any actual macro issues with Bitcoin if the value doesn't increase, right?
Yes.
It's part of the solution to the problem.
Yeah.
We got to deliver value to the network.
Yes.
Or else problem maintains, right? So that's what validates NAT, is like actually increasing its value.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So what is the blueprint to that, right?
Okay. All right. So the Bitcoin security budget is a ticking clock. So when it comes to Bitcoin, the single most important thing, this is what most people miss, the single most important thing to Bitcoin is the security budget, and the security budget is the amount of revenue that Bitcoin miners make. So as the security budget increases, the more better the solution Bitcoin is, right? So as the block reward diminishes with each halving, the network security relies increasingly on transaction fees. If fees don't rise sufficiently to compensate miners, Bitcoin's security model faces a systemic risk. So this slide explains the systemic concerns around miner sustainability that will become a dominant market narrative. It highlights the vulnerability of the network post-halving. So this is in the context of Bitcoin's price going down.
Yeah, it 4-year cycle maintaining, meaning we've already experienced the top back in October.
Yeah.
Expect Bitcoin to settle somewhere within the $50,000 to $60,000 range. That would be my prediction. That's around 60%.
All right,
that's conservative compared to prior.
Let me show you what your prediction actually looks like.
I'm not scared, dude. Let me see.
All right, so you're saying 60 grand, right?
50 to 60. Let's go all the way. See
50,
where we're at.
Wait, 50. Where's that? That's the $50,000 line. $50,000 is right here.
Hold on. Enhance. Right there?
Right here.
I mean, that's not that far away. We've done it before.
That's not the same scale.
It's not?
It's not.
Okay. So what are you saying?
So this is ridiculous.
No way, dude. How's that ridiculous?
$50,000 Bitcoin.
I mean, it would feel pretty ridiculous for sure. And that's why it would mark like a bottom, right? Because you would feel like, I can't believe it. You would feel betrayed, angry, actually. And that's fitting with the psychology of like a market bottom, right? You're already kind of like projecting it in a sense. You would feel the ultimate disappointment.
I feel like it goes beyond ultimate at that point at 50,000. I think we're going beyond ultimate.
So then what's your reasonable?
Okay, so what would you qualify? What is this feeling that you would describe here when Luna was collapsing, SVB collapsed?
It was exactly that. Don't you remember?
Was it ultimate, like despair?
Yeah, dude.
Ultimate.
Yes.
Yeah.
We literally had to.
Okay, I do remember that. Banks were collapsing. It was like, it's actually over.
Yeah, we went to conferences and people were like, "It's like leave the country now."
Oh, that's true. They did say that.
Get out of the United States.
Okay.
Now they're coming for you.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
They did say that.
And we had to like whiteboard and we had to put on a daily reminder. It's like, don't kill yourself. Not to that extent, but I remember, TJ, was it you? You wrote something. It's like, stop talking about doom. No more doom, guys.
Yeah.
Because every video was just like so sad.
Okay, but we're talking about actual banks collapsing. That does feel like ultimate. What is happening here?
Treasury companies collapsing, maybe even the biggest one.
No way,
But
dude.
Tom Lee loses all his aura potentially. I mean, he shaves his head completely. You know, I don't know. That's kind of the. Of course, we don't know, but it's gonna be something.
Well, it's got to be to that scale then. If we're gonna see $50,000 Bitcoin, that means
something bad.
Saylor is selling hundreds of thousands of dollars or hundred thousands of Bitcoin, hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin.
Could happen.
It could. That would qualify for ultimate despair. I would agree.
Yeah, and who knows? Like, did we foresee Terra Luna collapse and FTX collapse? No. What if Binance collapses for some reason? Like, they were part of this October 10 crash and like they just over leveraged because of perps because they're trying to hyper compete with Hyperliquid and they got themselves into a sticky situation.
Sure.
That like a year down the line actually blows up on them for some reason. And then like the Hyperliquid guy, he's the one who ousts CZ. The way CZ ousted Sam Bankman-Fried is like, oh, history repeated again. How convenient.
Yeah, it's karma, right?
Yeah, exactly. What a nice tale.
Story, yeah.
Good script for writing up here. And then watch it actually happen. It's like,
Wow. If that happens, first I'll be very surprised. Yeah. And then this video will be viral.
Clipped?
Yeah.
If like CZ actually ends up in prison for real this time.
Through Hyperliquid, because of Hyperliquid.
Yeah, like Hyperliquid ousts them.
Yeah.
They're working on the investigative like components right now the same way 50 Cent built his case against P. Diddy.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're at that level of beef between CZ and Jeff, you know?
Yeah.
So who knows?
All right, let's continue here. So NAT is architected as a second valid subsidy. NAT is designed to provide a new non-native revenue stream for Bitcoin miners. Directly addressing the security budget gap, its value is intrinsically linked to the function within the Bitcoin ecosystem. So I would qualify this as native revenue stream just because it comes from Bitcoin anyways.
Yeah. AI.
But AI stuff, yeah. So NAT being delivered to Bitcoin miners as the biggest deal about NAT is not the DMT, it's not that it comes from Bitcoin, like none of that. The big deal about NAT is that first, it is decoupled from the mechanics of exponential decay. Mm-hmm. It is completely separate mechanism than Bitcoin. And so that's first thing that needs to happen in order to sustain Bitcoin. The second thing is it has to have like immaculate conception to a certain extent, right? It needs to exist in a way where there isn't one party that's benefiting from the proliferation of NAT. Mm-hmm. And that's what we have with NAT. That's why NAT works.
Yes.
And then in addition, it's like, well, it actually comes from Bitcoin. And, the Genesis event meant that $3 to $5 million were sent to Bitcoin miners anyways. So it's like, it's just a perfect story.
Yeah.
So the 2026 Ascent, a timeline of catalysts. So V1 launch. So V1 is referring to our application that we have not talked about really in detail.
Yeah. Just imagine it's called V1.
Yeah.
But really it implies it's version 1 of this shadow app that we've been kind of hinting at for months now.
Yes.
it's coming next year at some point. So in Q1, that is the like 99% expectation of arrival date.
Sure.
Or quarter, I guess, right?
Yeah, I would agree. And quarter 2 after the launch is the community consolidation. Quarter 3 V2 inflection point.
Yeah, version 2. So things improve significantly at version 2.
And then quarter 4 institutional recognition.
That's right. Now,
Wow.
which institutions? We're about to find out.
Yeah. All right. So V1 launch ignites on-chain momentum, Bitcoin ordinal inscriptions. So an uptick in momentum not seen since pre-runes. Runes really ruined ordinals. Like that was
seems like yeah, in hindsight for sure.
The coffin shut when runes launched.
Yeah, but even still, I still think like we would have still settled at this point.
We should have. We would have. Yeah, we would have. Yeah.
In the context of, again, knowing things typically at the application level, they have boom and bust moments, right? So it's like the bust was inevitable.
It was, absolutely.
But still, because of that, an uptick in momentum is pretty...
That's a big deal.
It's a big deal, and it's not that difficult to achieve.
No, it's not.
Because there's really nothing else proliferating ordinal inscriptions in any way.
Yes,
right?
Agreed. And then, so the second component of this application is Solana. So DEX activity. And so we'd be able to see this activity via charts and doing dashboards and all that stuff.
So similar situation. Well, the Solana ecosystem, it's in a state of despair. We talked about 90% decrease in user activity, but it's nowhere near to the degree of the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Yep.
But nonetheless, like if something of notable like substance is achieved in the context of Solana, it should be identifiable.
100%.
Because right now the only cluster of activity is still pumped up fun.
Yeah.
Right. So if something else emerges,
you'd be able to see the signal.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, the radar will see the pulse. Right.
Yeah. And the outcome of this is multi-chain community of new NAT and DMT enthusiasts aggregates around the successful V1 product. So quarter 2, quarter 3 foundation is built amidst market cool down.
Yeah. So if you remember, this is where we assume Bitcoin will teasing its bottom, and like you're saying, the ridiculousness events will emerge.
Yes, yeah. The Bitcoin price reaches 50 to 60,000. The price action leads to a natural slowdown in application volume metrics as speculative froth leaves the market. The silver lining is, despite the slowdown, the core enthusiast community born from the V1 launch continues to aggregate and strengthen. This is not a period of failure, but a strategic preparation. The reason why this is viable is because ordinals launched in the peak despair, and it cultivated a pretty large community, so very large that it was a pandemic of inscriptions across all chains.
100%. Yeah, but there was a period of cooling even for that. Like they had the initial euphoria around ordinals and early iterations of new PFPs on Bitcoin kind of settled and cooled down until like BRC20s kind of hit the stage, which think of that as like ordinals V2, right? It's like we've unlocked a new dimension of creatability, right? And that's where things really took off, and then also had its own cooldown period following that, and then that's where new novel things like bitmap and DMT started entering the equation, and
that's right.
The whole kind of space kind of like just flourished from there, until runes.
Thank you, runes.
Put an end to all that fun.
Yeah. So again, these are predictions, right? So we have community building. It's going to be growing as Bitcoin price goes to 50 to 60K.
Yeah.
And the perfect storm, V2, the market awareness converge. These two events create the perfect conditions for a much larger market reaction. So V2 creator tools. So this update, which we haven't even shown you guys V1, but V2 is crazier.
Yeah, we know some things. we're thinking long term here.
So
right?
So this V2 update, in the context of people understand that this asset is supporting the Bitcoin subsidy crisis.
Yeah.
That narrative of Bitcoin needing a new subsidy is going to collide into
pretty much
$200 million to $1 billion market cap NAT.
I think so. I think this is where market forces align in understanding, right? Where it's like, oh shit, the problem is huge because Bitcoin's price is what it's at.
Yeah.
And then like the natural instinct will be to like experiment natively on L1 Bitcoin to boost up fees. But then like this other thing that is multi-chain, and it's introducing a whole new approach to solving this problem.
Yeah.
It's perfect timing in my mind. So long as everything rolls out under this like time scale.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like kaboom.
Yeah.
Right. And then people realize all of this is in support of NAT.
Yeah, which is in support of Bitcoin miners, which is in support of the value of Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like $1 billion market cap. We did it.
Yeah.
Who knows what that means? Maybe Binance will list it, OKX. Who knows, right?
Yeah, the flywheel effect creator tools unleash exponential growth. One of the powerful creator tools from V2 launch becomes the engine for a rampant proliferation of community-generated DMT-based applications. So the cycle repeats. So it says new DMT apps launch built easily with V2 tools. And so this gives you a kind of hint what V2 is. Increased market awareness, utility, and novelty draw widespread attention. This is DMT pill being taken crypto-wide.
Yeah, this is where you're going to see us, if all this pans out, on ThreadGuide stream.
That's right.
You know, who else? Who else gets, what else is the roadshow?
Yeah, I don't know what Bitcoin did. It's like, what did you guys do to Bitcoin?
Yeah, it's like, how dare you? You know, that's true.
I thought Bitcoin was perfect.
Yeah, some of these Bitcoin podcasters might start to pick up on the wave and inquire. It's like, you know, what are y'all doing? I thought spam was a bad thing.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe we have like a public beef with what's his face?
Luke Dash Jr.
Yeah. We become like the heads up combatants.
Yes.
Like, see. This is why you're wrong, dude.
Yeah, this is NAT is a good example why spam is actually kind of a good thing.
Yeah. I love spam.
Yeah.
I eat it at least once a week. It's delicious.
Yeah. All right. So then number 3, enthusiasm for NAT benefits from the halo effect as the original DMT. Therefore, NAT value goes up. Bitcoin becomes a little bit more secure. And this accelerates the buyback. Increased demand and utility fuels the buyback mechanism of the NAT token. A new primitive is recognized. A proliferation of DMT-based applications furthers market awareness and acceptance of non-arbitrary tokens as a new digital primitive in the crypto landscape. So we have Exhibit 1, BTC is a store of value, kind of like digital gold. We have Exhibit 2, ETH, programmable money. Okay, and then we have Exhibit 3, NAT DMT, non-arbitrary tokens. And look at what it generated.
Remember, that's
magical.
It's with no added context. It just figured, this is what digital substance should look like, right? And it's spot on.
It's spot on, yeah. The paradigm shift solidifies NAT's position as the original most important asset in this new category, attracting significant capital in the tune of $1 billion to $4 billion range leading into 2027.
Feels right. Feels right to me, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely reasonable.
Yeah, if we have industry-wide alignment and understanding, it's like, oh shit, Bitcoin serves a broader purpose than just some sort of money transfer machine. Yeah, it's like it truly is like the substance generator.
Yes, I totally agree. And remember, this is in the context of Bitcoin being at $50,000, right? We have $50,000 Bitcoin, but $1 billion and $4 billion market cap for NAT.
Mm-hmm.
And Q4 2026 leading into 2027, the network reaches consensus. Key events: Foundry, along with several other Western-based Bitcoin miners, officially recognize NAT. Methods of recognition is demonstrated through tangible actions such as transferring of tokens or full liquidation of holdings. The tipping point: this act solidifies NAT's subsidy status, achieving over 90% adoption across the Bitcoin hash power.
Yeah, so now is it like not? It's like immovably part of like the ecosystem and the economy flywheel, I guess, if you will, to keep things churning in the Bitcoin network.
Yeah.
But we've achieved that state of validity, right? Where at that valuation, it's going to be delivering more value than the fees for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's like we've entered new normalcy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So the new equilibrium, NAT is essential infrastructure for Bitcoin. By the start of 2027, NAT has completed its journey from a speculative concept to a functional integrated network adopted subsidy. This security budget gap is now consistently filled, ensuring the long-term sustainability and security of the Bitcoin network. NAT is no longer just a token, it's a core component of the system. So we have the declining block rewards, and we have the security budget gap. This is where a lot of centralization is occurring into combat that, we have the NAT token, where we maintain decentralization and therefore the value of Bitcoin. 2026, finally, the last page here, NAT investment thesis catalyst. We got Q1, V1 launch. V2 is in Q3. Subsidy narrative goes mainstream. That's when we go to Thread Guy's thread.
Right.
And our stream, Foundry and miner adoption in Q4. Flywheel V2 tools drive a proliferation of DMT apps. This cements non-arbitrary tokens as a new digital primitive, and market awareness and buyback pressure accelerate. And then the value inflection point, BTC bottoms at 50,000, $200 billion market cap NAT, and Flywheel means that we got practically a $4 billion market cap token, which is delivering more than transaction fees to Bitcoin. All in 2026.
Jesus, dude. This is an important year. Would you say?
I would say. I mean, NAT's ascent is a direct function of its necessity to the Bitcoin network.
Yeah. So if there's anybody out there who's been watching this channel since 2019, first of all, I want to know you. Yes. Make your presence be known. That's pretty badass. I would like to know why. Why would you listen to us for 6 years? That's insane. And then second of all, you're about to witness the climax, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, this is it. This is the year where this whole journey actually leads up to meaning something or not, right? Well, there's going to be meaning whether it pans out like this or not.
Yeah.
There's going to be either an attempt story or like an actual, like, holy shit, this is how they did it.
Yeah.
Type of year, right?
Yeah. If we do achieve this, the cool thing is this whole thing was recorded.
Exactly.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
It's from the launch of DMT. It's in there. It's in the books.
That's right. So yeah, well, by this time next year, we will get to say, it's like, we fucking swung our hardest, dude.
Yeah. And
we really Barry Bonds the hell out of this.
And we got a grand slam.
So what we should have done is taken more steroids, if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, that's right.
We fucked up, dude.
Nothing wrong with more steroids, dude.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that's the podcast for today. You're going to be watching this right after Christmas. And so hope you had a safe Christmas. New Year's coming up. And yeah, so I appreciate you guys for watching and supporting the podcast and sharing the videos. And yeah, the great takeaway here is the NAT token is the single most important thing happening in crypto, and it's not even close. So yeah, let's keep the content coming from the NAT perspective on Twitter, and we will catch you in the next year.
Peace.